Hi everyone, Crista Cowan here with another episode of the Barefoot Genealogist. Hopefully sometime this morning or yesterday morning you got an email from us announcing a new campaign about our death records. So we're going to be talking a lot over the next couple of weeks about death records. You may have noticed on the Ancestry.com homepage, there's a banner across the top with a little link that'll take you to a page where you can enter our Death Records Challenge, where you actually can answer some questions, dig into some of those records, and win some really fun prizes that we have scheduled for you over the next couple of weeks. In that same vein, the live stream broadcasts for the next couple of weeks are going to be specifically about death records. We're going to start today talking about searching for death certificates. On Thursday, we're going to talk about alternatives to death certificates. And then in the next week or two, we're going to talk about cemeteries, accessing cemetery records, accessing death records, what those death records can tell you. Just really dive really deep on this one topic because it's one of those things that is a critical, as a matter of fact, we call it a vital record. And so the more you understand about it, the more likely you are to have success in finding those records. And when you do find those records, the more likely you are to A, know you have found the record for the right person, and B, know exactly what that record tells you so that you can carry your family history back even further. So with that introduction, let's dive into today's topic, searching for death certificates. We're going to start, and it's just, we're going to just do a simple 1, 2, 3 today because I learn best when things are laid out in steps, and so hopefully you do as well. So the first step that we're going to talk about today is just what death records exist. One of the questions that I get asked a lot is, why can't I find a death record for my great-great-grandfather in X place and Y time? And the first thing I always do is I go to the Ancestry.com wiki to see if such a record even exists. Now you're going to find that wiki in our Learning Center. Once you get there, you're going to want to search by state, and then you're going to look for the Vital Records link for that state. So here's what that looks like. The wiki, again, if you hover over the Learning Center, it's going to be this very bottom option here, Family History Wiki. When you click on that, you're going to come here to the wiki. Now here's what the wiki is. We have taken two of the premier genealogical guidebooks. One is the Source, and one is the Red Book. And we have put those online for free. We've made little wiki pages or articles out of each and every article or chapter in each of those books. And then we've made it fully searchable. So for example, I could come in here and I could search for Tennessee, the state of Tennessee. You'll see I get a whole bunch of search results, but that second link right there is for Tennessee Vital Records. Now here is an article all about vital records for the state of Tennessee. Now I'm not going to read this whole thing to you, and hopefully you'll go and play around with this and try this out for yourself. But let me just read pieces of this so that you get an idea of the kind of information you're gonna find in these articles. This Tennessee Vital Records article tells me that several early attempts were made to record births and deaths statewide, but were not effective until 1908. So if you're looking for a death certificate in the state of Tennessee before 1908, they were not kept by the state. As a matter of fact, if you look down a paragraph, it says, a 1914 state law required state registration of deaths, but general compliance was incomplete until the late 1920s. So even though they had a statewide registration began in 1908, a law went into effect in 1914, general compliance didn't occur until the late 1920s. So that's going to be when you're going to start to see full statewide coverage. Now, if you look down one more paragraph, you'll discover that beginning in 1881, some counties kept death records. So statewide, 1908 until 1920s, it wasn't really all across the state. After the 1920s, then there was general compliance. Before 1908, back to 1881, those records were kept by the counties and were kept at the county courthouses. Now, of course, lots of those have been microfilmed. Many of those have been placed online. But that gives you an idea of of whether what you're looking for even exists. Now, there are some exceptions, so don't just read the first 2 paragraphs or 3 paragraphs. Always keep going. You'll notice there are a few exceptions here. Some deaths recorded in Nashville as early as July of 1874, some from Chattanooga as early as March of 1872. So it calls out exceptions where they exist. And gives you a little bit more direction. So if your family happens to be from Nashville or from Knoxville or Chattanooga, then yay, you have a better chance of finding a death certificate for your family member if they were from that particular place. But this is not uncommon that death records were not kept at a state level until the early 1900s. I can go to any state, just type it in this search box over here, look for that vital records link, and find the same information. California didn't keep state records of death until 1905. Earlier, they were kept at a county level. And then here's some information about which counties kept records when. Any state, I can just type in the name of that state, go to that vital records link, and read the information about what records even exist. That's that first step. Okay, if you're looking for a death record in California in 1852, you're gonna probably not find one, but check the article because there may be something at the county level that can help you. So you're going to find the wiki in the Learning Center. You're going to search that wiki by state, look for that vital records link so that you can then know where to find those records, which is the next step. So once you've discovered if the record you're looking for even exists, then you need to know where to find them. My favorite resource on Ancestry.com is the card catalog. The card catalog is simply a listing of every database that Ancestry.com has. So I'm not going to waste my time doing searches on the general search category or the general search page unless I've already checked the card catalog to see that the record I want is even online. Because if the record I'm looking for isn't even online, why spend my time looking for it, right? That seems pretty logical, but every once in a while I talk about the card catalog and people say, well, why wouldn't I want to just search? Well, I want to make sure that what I'm searching for even exists. So here's how the card catalog works. Let me just walk through it and then I'll show you. You're going to find the card catalog under search. You're going to filter by record type and then by location. And then just keep in mind that some of these are actual records and some of these are indexes. So when Ancestry.com gets information from state libraries and archives and private collectors and anybody who will share records with us, when we obtain those records, sometimes all we can obtain is the index. The original records aren't available to us, or the archive wants to keep the original records, but they'll provide us with an index to those records so that you can see if they have the record in the index. And then, of course, if it's an index only, they want you, that particular archive or library wants you to write them or visit them to obtain a copy of that original certificate. So different states and different time periods, there's different records available, so pay attention to that. Here's what that looks like on the website. So let's go back to Ancestry.com. The card catalog, again, is found under search. So if you just move your mouse over that search box, go all the way down to the bottom, there's the card catalog. I'm going to click on that. You'll notice Ancestry.com has over 31,000 databases. I can filter by record type, so I'm going to click on birth, marriage, and death, and then I'm going to filter it even further by death records. Then I'm going to filter by location, so I'm going to click on US, and then I'm going to scroll down here. We've been talking about Tennessee, so let's look for those Tennessee records. I'm going to click on Tennessee. And what you're going to notice here is we have some records like the Social Security Death Index, the U.S. Obituary Collection. Those records have national coverage. So they cover the entire United States, but they include records from Tennessee, which is why they're on this list. What I'm looking for specifically is a database that starts with the word Tennessee. So if I want to filter that even further, I can just type the word Tennessee in this title field, and now I'm looking at a grand total of 16 databases that contain some kind of death record for Tennessee. Now, this first one, we're just going to take a look at it really quickly. It's Tennessee death records. And do you remember that year, 1908, is when the state of Tennessee started keeping death records at a state level. These records go through 1958. My guess is because the state of Tennessee likely has privacy laws in place that don't allow the release of records publicly much after that. But if you'll scroll down past this search box, and I recommend you do this on every database you come to, one of the things you'll discover is where Ancestry.com obtained these records. And that makes a difference. It makes a difference whether these records were obtained from an official government organization or if they were obtained from a private collector. It makes a difference if they're original records versus indexes. And this database description will give you that information. So here we can see that these particular records were obtained from the Tennessee State Library and Archives. And it talks about here in the database description about form changes. So there were different forms that the records were recorded on at different time periods. And then it also talks about how there's an exception. So this database actually contains records of death from 1908 through 1912, and then from 1914 to 1958. That 1913 year, it says no death records were recorded by the state of Tennessee in 1913 due to a change in the state law requiring vital records registration. So again, I always read these because I want to know if what I'm looking for even exists and if it exists online at Ancestry.com. I don't want to waste my time searching or get frustrated searching or spend hours trying to be creative in my searches looking for a record that might not even exist. And so if you check the card catalog, if you check these database descriptions, you're going to know that before you even start searching. And then, of course, if what you're looking for should be here, I think at least for me, it tends to make me a little bit more patient as I'm searching. If what I'm looking for should be here, then I keep trying and I keep trying until I find what I'm looking for. Now, this is on all Ancestry.com databases that have images attached. You're going to see this little browse section over here. And that's one of the ways that you can tell just at a glance whether this is just an index or whether there are records attached. Now you'll notice here we have images of death certificates. We also have an image of the index that the state created. My guess is I haven't looked at it, but it's probably an old typed index, and we just copied the images of their typed index. That's one of those ways that can just help you find the record you're looking for a little easier. Or of course you can just search for that particular record using the search fields like you're familiar with. Now that's the Tennessee death records. Now you'll notice here there's another Tennessee database that lists deaths, and it starts in 1874. But you'll notice it's an index only. There's no browse box over here, so there are no images attached. What you're going to get is just an index entry. If I scroll down a little bit, it's going to tell me that Ancestry.com actually obtained these records from Family Search. It's a copy of their microfilm of the index of the original records, right? And so these were, this is an index, and indexes are always a step removed from the original. Sometimes it's 2 or 3 steps removed from the original. And in genealogy, our goal is always to get as close to the original as possible. So always check this database description. Sometimes it contains information about where you can write to get an actual copy of the certificate. Sometimes it just gives you enough information that you can go back into that family history wiki, type in the name of that state again, click on that vital records link, and in here you'll see where you can write. Tennessee Office of Vital Records, it's got a link to their website so that you could go to their website. They might have an online ordering system, or there's an actual written address here. Records after, let's see, records for the last 100 years are held by the Office of Vital Records. Records before that are held by the Tennessee State Library and Archives. And so it gives you information specifically about where to go once you find an index entry to obtain the original copy of that record. Hopefully that makes sense. If you have questions, of course, I'll be on chat immediately after this if you're watching this live, or just type it in the comments if you're watching an archived version of this on YouTube, and I'll pay attention to those and answer those as I can. So when you're looking for it, you've discovered a record exists, now you want to know where you can find it. Check the card catalog to see if we have it online. If we do, read that database description. Make sure you know whether it's an index or an original record. If you don't find the record online at Ancestry.com, and not everything is online, and not everything that is online is available through Ancestry.com. All of that is dependent on which archives and libraries are willing to work with us, or where we can get copies of records that are made available to us. Some people are willing to work with us, some aren't, some we just haven't got to yet. So here are a few other resources that I use when I'm looking for death certificates in particular. There's an excellent free website. It's cindyslist.com. If you haven't used Cindy's List, Cindy has done a wonderful, wonderful job for years and years now of basically cataloging anything genealogically related on the entire internet. She does a fantastic job of keeping up with all of the different developments as records come available online. So if you just go to Cindy's List, you can click on any state, and then again click down to vital records, and she'll have a list of where you're going to find all different vital records for that particular state. The other thing you can do is you can do a web search for the state archive or state library. Sometimes they're the same organization in some states. In some states they are separate organizations, so be sure to check both and see what records they have made available. A lot of states, well, some states have received grants or money that has been made available to them that they have used to digitize their own records and put those records online. And so oftentimes they're not going to share them with Ancestry.com because they've done all this work and put in all this effort, and in many cases, because we know digitization is not cheap, a lot of money to get these records digitized and put up on their own website, and so that's where they're housed and maintained, and you can go there to search them. And then the final suggestion there, if you don't find the records online at Ancestry.com, is just to revisit that wiki, read that article again, make sure you understand it, make sure you understand where you could write or visit if you ever take a trip to your ancestral homeland or state, where you can write or visit to obtain those records in person. So that's where you're going to find those records. And then finally, and this is just kind of a teaser really, what if the record you want doesn't exist? And that's going to be the case in a lot of situations where the state didn't start keeping records until the early 1900s, and records before that were housed at a county, and the one county that you need was destroyed in a fire, or the one county that you need didn't start keeping records consistently, or whatever. There's a million reasons why a death certificate as we know it may not exist, but there are so many alternatives to death certificates. And this Thursday, we're going to talk about exactly what those alternatives to death certificates are, where else you can go to find information about an ancestor or a relative's death, and that where it's documented, which sources are more trustworthy or less trustworthy, so that you can obtain that information. So I hope you'll join me on Thursday. That's this coming Thursday, October 18th. As always, we do our presentations at 1 o'clock Eastern, and then we archive them on our YouTube channel later in the day if you are not able to watch it live. So that's the deal with death certificates. You need to figure out what records exist, then check our catalog online to see if we have them online. If we don't, make sure you check that wiki or other online sources for that state to see where you can find those records. If the records just absolutely don't exist, we'll talk on Thursday about all the different alternatives to death records. Hopefully you found that helpful. If you have other suggestions, I'm putting together the November calendar here in just a week or so. So if you have suggestions for other topics you'd like discussed, please feel free to email me at ask@ancestry.com. And then check our Ancestry.com Facebook page for events. I say that at the end of every broadcast, and I've had some questions about where exactly we find that. So let me just show you quickly. On the Ancestry.com Facebook page, and if you don't know how to get there or you're not connected, you just type in Ancestry.com in this search box. But there's this series of tabs right here under our main picture. Now you'll notice some of them are hidden. It only shows 4 at a time. So if you just click this little number right here, it opens up all of our different tabs. And the events tab is right here. It usually either has a picture of the back of my computer or a picture of Anne or Juliana as they do presentations as well. So here's the schedule for the rest of October. Hopefully you'll check that out, see what presentations or topics are of interest to you, and join us at one of those events. Until next time, this is Crista Cowan. Have fun climbing your family tree.